Hey YouTube, this is City Prepping. In this installment of the City Prepping Weekly News, we're going to take a look at the events that are playing out right now that you need to be aware of. Once again, the Russian-Ukrainian war has opened up a new dangerous chapter that you need to be aware of. Once again, we see in real time the collapse of part of our critical infrastructure. And this time it was a direct attack on the grid. China is also pivoting to avoid an all-out meltdown. And we may have dodged a railway strike this week, but our economy, unfortunately, is still slowing. Now, I'm going to summarize all of this for you as briefly as possible in this segment of Critical News. Also, be sure to stick around for this week's giveaway. Russia attacked. Recently, the war between Russia and Ukraine may have entered a new dangerous phase. It's being reported that 2 explosions occurred at major Russian military bases. Now, one explosion happened at the Ryazan base, just 150 kilometers from Moscow and 580 kilometers from Ukraine's border. And the second explosion occurred at the Ingles 2 base, which is a little more than 800 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Also, explosions were reported in Crimea, indicating that these other 2 explosions were not likely accidents, but part of a more sophisticated and coordinated attack. Video posted to social media reportedly has audio with the sound of either a missile or a jet engine preceding the explosions. Other footage purportedly showed the blast and resulting sound wave. This is a dramatic turn in a war for many reasons. The photographic evidence that we've gotten up to this point shows a small blast area, more consistent with a smaller strike. We also count the less confirmed Crimea explosions. The multiple, simultaneous attack points don't allow Moscow to dismiss them as just mere accidents. Perhaps the most chilling possibility, and is surely the stance Putin will take if these explosions prove to be significant enough, is a direct assistance by NATO to Ukraine to facilitate these explosions. In that case, Putin would use such a claim to broaden the war by potentially attacking a NATO nation. A growing crisis is being instigated at the Poland-Belarus border, and the U.S. has recently supplied fresh new military equipment to Poland. Any way you look at this, range capability, direct assistance, missiles, jet aircraft on suicide missions, sabotage, or any combination of these methods of attack signify that a new phase of the war has been unlocked here. Putin must direct forces away from the front line to harden potential targets deep within Russia's border. This will draw troops away from the front lines of the conflict zone in Ukraine, where he desperately needs them to be. The next attack will shed more light on the origins of these attacks. Regardless of the source, it presents Putin with a fresh set of challenges far beyond his contained, as he refers to it, special military operation. It could give him the justification to expand the war by opening a new front line in Poland or elsewhere. It could leave him desperate to fill and cover up cracks within his own military establishment. The coming days and weeks will let us know how this will play out and all the parties responsible. The only thing that we know with great certainty is that strikes far within Russia are not only possible, but occurring with greater frequency and impact. Russian response may be to carry out covert espionage attacks on the infrastructure of other countries, just not Ukraine itself. U.S. infrastructure attacked. Infrastructure, as solid and well established as it may seem, is actually one of our most significant dependencies and weaknesses. One of the things I cover a lot on this channel is the need to have a backup system in place. You need to prep for energy independence, or at least the ability to power critical devices if the grid goes down. 40,000 residents of central North Carolina are just the latest to realize how fragile our nation's infrastructure is. Allegedly, vandals opened fire on substations in what authorities are calling a targeted attack. And this was not a random event. It was a targeted attack. Utility workers, they found gates were broken and evidence of gunfire damage to equipment at 2 different substations. The damage was extensive enough that the power company, Duke Energy, warned residents that it would be a multi-day power restoration operation, potentially stretching into Thursday of this week. Fortunately, nightly temperatures are about 15 to 20 degrees above freezing, so it's cold but less fatal to the area's residents. At this point, we're still determining if the infrastructure attack was carried out by an individual, an organized domestic group, or even foreign operatives. The culprits and motives in this instance, they're not as important as the message that we should get from the act itself, and the investigation continues. The takeaway is how fragile and unprotected infrastructure systems across America are. We trust for-profit independent power companies to secure their critical infrastructure, and that's less of a priority for them than you might think. You probably know of at least one substation around you protected by little more than a chain link fence. If it's a weather or intentional vandalism, it isn't a question of how the power will go out for you. It's more of a question of when. It will fail at some point, and whether during a scorching summer heat wave, an Arctic blast from the north, or an all-out attack, will you be prepared? And that's a real question here. You don't need to be able to run your whole house, the kids' iPads, your massive flat screen TV, the washer, dryer, dishwasher, but you do need to be able to take care of your basic energy needs without being dependent on the grid. Remember that when the power goes out for you, it also goes out for other critical services that you rely upon. In this case, some rural residents are reportedly refrigerating medicines with their backup generators for at least one area pharmacy. One power outage for an indefinite period can quickly unravel the stable fabric of society. You need to consider energy as a prep, and that's one thing that we definitely encourage on this channel. At the very least, you need to be able to at least regulate the temperature of your immediate environment, cook food, boil water, and charge essential tools and equipment. Becoming completely energy independent at home is really neither easy nor cheap, but you need to know and understand what your actual power needs are. Now, I highly recommend you watch one of my recent videos entitled When the Grid Goes Down, How to Power Essential Devices. I'm going to link to it below and also up in the cards above, and I'll post probably a link at the end of this video. It's the most straightforward step-by-step explanation for you to really assess and address your ongoing emergency power needs. If you have yet to see the video, it's been a while maybe since you have, you're going to want to view that so that you understand what you can power if the grid goes down. Now, in the coming years, as we already see in many places worldwide, I believe energy is going to be more and more weaponized. There's currently a fight over capping the price of Russian oil. India, China, and Turkey are increasing their purchases of Russian commodities at wholesale prices. And Europe is concerned that revenue from the sale of Russian oil will only further fund Russia's war efforts. The G7 and Australia, they have applied a price cap of $60 a barrel on Russian oil. And that's far below today's OPEC basket price for a barrel at around $80. If you live in a resource-rich country, your energy resources will flow to other countries to fill the gaps created. Make no mistake about it, energy everywhere will be a challenge for at least the rest of this decade, if not longer. You must understand this and make energy one of your preps today. China's policy change. Last week, we reported how people are fighting against COVID policy lockdowns. We even released a video that took the most comprehensive deep dive into what might come of these protests that I think I've seen anywhere on the internet. I'll link to that video in the comments below and also up in the cards above. And we had several comments on that video that our assessment of the outcome of these protests was spot on from people who lived in China or who worked in China. It appears that the Chinese government is beginning to cave with its damage control and easing some of the restrictions for its population. Urumqi, the city of Xinjiang region and where the protests first erupted, they're going to reopen malls, markets, restaurants, and other venues. China is set to announce a nationwide easing of testing requirements further, as well as allowing positive cases and close contacts to isolate at home under certain conditions. The dynamic zero COVID policies have so far had a devastating impact on the world's second largest economy, royal global supply chains, and closed cross-border travel to the communist country. Does the country's easing of restrictions signify an about-face in policy? Not likely. A full opening could lead, by some forecasts, to 1.3 to 2 million deaths amongst the population. And the containment strategy may have been eased due to the struggle between public frustration and the Communist Party's local authorities implementing party mandates. The only certainty is that this struggle will continue and will continue to drag on China's economy. The uncertainties are how unchecked the virus will spread, the rate of infection, the impact on the Chinese healthcare system, and how things could unravel still from here. We're going to continue to monitor this piece of the Chinese puzzle. The Chinese economy is suffering from slumping global export demand, droughts in some regions, a collapsing real estate market, and a host of other problems. So this easing of policy is more of a simple loosening of a too tight belt. Railroad strike? Last Friday, President Joe Biden signed legislation passed through Congress to block a rail shutdown that could have devastated the American economy. The deal that he did sign did not include paid sick leave for workers. It was really a key sticking point for unions in contract talks with 5 major U.S. railroads. It did force through the pay raise proposal, and paid time off is showing up on the agenda of several shareholder meetings scheduled for the spring. Additionally, all of the plan points are going up line by line for unions to vote on and ratify. Most significant, though, out of this legislation is that it made a railway strike illegal, and this prevents workers from just simply walking off the job in the future. The workers and the companies, they had until December 9 to reach an agreement, but neither of them wanted to concede. The potential of a strike and the immediate ramifications on the economy meant that neither had to concede. Instead, concessions could have been forced upon them by the government, and they could have claimed that they both lost and also both won. According to federal safety measures, railroad carriers began preparing for strikes 7 days in advance. The carriers started to prioritize the securing and movement of sensitive materials such as chlorine for drinking water and hazardous materials. So even the threat of a potential strike can have an impact weeks before it occurs. The government wanted to remove that possibility, especially during a recession and soaring inflation. The provision to add 7 days of paid sick leave failed in the Senate in a 52-43 vote. And this situation isn't as dangerous of a fire as it was just a few days ago, but it is still very much of a crisis in the making. Likely, what we'll see is this play out in the voting booths, the boardrooms, and union halls over this next year. I wouldn't be surprised if railway workers get the time off they seek after everything is said and done, but we will hear every bit of the wrangling back and forth until we get there. What do you think? Did we dodge a bullet with this one, or is there more to come? Let us know your thoughts on this in the comments section below. Now, for this week's giveaway, we're going to be giving away a backpack. To enroll for a chance to be entered into the giveaway, just simply post a comment below. And next week, what I'll do is I'll use a tool to randomly draw a winner from the comments on this video. Just be sure that your email address shows on your YouTube account. And this is the most important thing to note. I've been getting a lot of bots that have been slamming my comments, impersonating me, telling people they've won, reaching out to them via email. I won't reach out to you unless your name shows on the screen next week. That's the key point here. Please ignore and report these spam comments that may come to you. For last week's winner, we used the tool to randomly draw the name from the comments section, and the winner for the portable solar panel was Brooke Zimmerman. I'll reach out to you shortly, Brooke, to get that sent to you. Economic forecast. Our final piece of the news today is, once again, the economy. Markets at the moment are in a mixed position. Growth appears to be sputtering. Home sales are tumbling. Prices have risen to 4-decade highs. Unemployment to half-century lows. Interest rates keep climbing. And economists and captains of industry warn of a potential recession ahead. As you can see, there's a lot of mixed signals in this. But consumers are still spending. Businesses keep posting profits. And the economy keeps adding hundreds of thousands of jobs each month. It's a lot to consider, but it is far from business as usual. There are simply too many mitigating factors to consider, too many unknowns. There are many indicators we don't usually track that point to a further downturn. For example, several media giants like Warner Brothers and Paramount are at the moment cutting jobs as advertising revenue is shrinking. And that would indicate that American consumers are tightening their belts and that a further slowdown of the economy is inevitable. The one single bright spot right now, though, at the moment is a half-century low unemployment that is just sitting at 3.6%. After the holidays, if this number shoots up significantly, you better hold on to your wallets and fasten your seatbelts. Because of the Fed's rate hikes, the dollar's value is up. And at the same time, there's a weakening in global growth. This is going to result in slow to stagnant growth amongst U.S. manufacturers. And that could mean they proactively downsize their workforce, thus increasing the ranks of the unemployed and snuffing out that last remaining bright spot. Almost every indicator of an even deeper economic trough points towards still darker days ahead. Personally, I've been looking at acquiring some land and expanding City Prepping's operations in many ways, but I'm in a holding pattern right now. Look, I'm not a financial consultant and I don't give financial advice, but I don't have to be to tell you that it might be wise to prepare for a much deeper recession than what we're erasing today. We covered this with regard to what you can expect for food costs in 2023 in a video last week. Food prices, they're going to impact everyone. Job losses might be around the corner for some. I would encourage you to approach your finances as part of your critical preps. In addition to the emergency cash that you have on hand, reduce and eliminate any debt wherever you can and cut any unnecessary expenditures. And I would encourage you to streamline your home operations. We'll continue to monitor these ongoing problems of the Russian war, our infrastructure, the railways, the economy, and the problems in China. Please don't forget that any one of these can complicate and instigate further declines in the others. The only thing that we can glean with certainty from these is that we will continue to face troubled times the rest of this year and into next year. Take this opportunity in the final days of 2022 to get informed and get prepared to face what will undoubtedly be a challenging future. I hope that you'll heed that call. And as always, please stay safe out there.